Nobody saw this coming. For years, Bruno Mars kept his mouth shut. He smiled on stage, cracked jokes in interviews, and let the rumors fly around him like he didn't even notice. But at 39 years old, something shifted inside him. He stopped running from the stories and started talking. And what he said about the debt, about Jessica, about the gambling, about the dark secret he had been carrying since childhood, it didn't just surprise people. It completely changed the way the world saw him. This is the story Bruno Mars never wanted to tell. And now that he finally has, nothing will ever look the same again. Before we get to what Bruno confirmed, you need to understand something. This man has been performing since before most kids learned to tie their shoes. At just 4 years old, while other children were playing with toys, Bruno was already doing 2 shows a night, 5 days a week. His family ran a musical act in Hawaii, and Bruno was their little star. They called him Little Elvis because he wore a tiny glitter jumpsuit and copied every single one of Elvis Presley's moves like he was born to do it. At 5 years old, he performed in front of 40,000 people at the Aloha Bowl halftime show. At 6, he appeared on the Arsenio Hall show on national television. Before he even turned 10, he had already completed nearly 1,000 live performances. 1,000 shows before the age of 10. Let that sink in for a second. That kind of childhood builds something deep inside a person. It wires your brain differently. The stage becomes the only place that feels safe. The applause becomes the only thing that feels real. And when it suddenly gets taken away, the damage runs deeper than most people could ever imagine. Because that is exactly what happened to Bruno Mars. When he was just 12 years old, his parents divorced. The family act fell apart overnight. The lights went out. The stage disappeared. And Bruno, his father, and his brother were left with almost nothing. They slept in a yellow 1993 Cadillac. They slept on rooftops in Waikiki. They once spent time in an abandoned bird zoo where peacocks screamed through the night, and there was no running water. They snuck into hotel pools just to take showers. Dinner was often nothing more than Spam musubi from a 7-Eleven. For 5 full months, they had no electricity. Bruno practiced guitar by moonlight because they couldn't afford amplifiers. At school, kids laughed at his thrift store clothes. But he never stopped. He earned $75 a night doing Michael Jackson impersonations just so he could save up for demo tapes and bus fare. That was the real Bruno Mars. Not the gold suits and sold-out stadiums. A kid with nothing, practicing in the dark, refusing to quit. That hunger followed him all the way to Los Angeles in 2003. He was 18 years old and stepped off the plane with only $600, 3 demo CDs, and his new name written on his luggage tag. Bruno Mars. He picked Bruno after the wrestler Bruno Sammartino. He picked Mars because a girl once told him he was so confident he must be from another planet. In his first year in LA, he lived in 4 different places, including a $40 a night motel on Sunset Boulevard and a cramped studio apartment in Koreatown shared with 6 other guys. He lied his way into a DJ job even though he had never touched DJ equipment in his life. He got fired after 2 nights. There were weeks that entire summer when he ate nothing but 99-cent tacos from Jack in the Box. Then in February 2004, Motown offered him a record deal. It was only 3 pages long. Bruno joked later that he had seen breakfast menus thicker than that contract. 9 months later, they dropped him without releasing a single song. He had already called his family back home and told them he made it. That failure hit harder than anything the streets of Waikiki had ever thrown at him. But here is the thing about Bruno Mars. Every time life knocked him flat, he got back up and worked harder than before. After Motown dropped him, he met another artist they had also let go named Philip Lawrence. The two made a quiet promise to each other. They would write music so undeniable that no label would ever be able to say no again. They started writing in the back of Philip's beat-up 1999 Toyota Corolla parked outside a small Hollywood studio. They paid for studio time with 7-Eleven burritos. They studied more than 1,000 hit songs before they ever released one of their own. Then Bruno's sister quietly slipped one of his demo CDs to a man connected to Dr. Dre. The man almost threw it away because Bruno's voice sounded too strange on the recording. But at 43 seconds in, Bruno hit a note so high and so pure that the man stopped, rewound the tape, and listened again. That one note changed everything. By 2010, Bruno Mars was not just an artist anymore. He was a force. Just the Way You Are entered the Billboard Hot 100 and hit #1 in just 8 weeks. It stayed on the charts for 48 weeks and went 13 times platinum. Then came Grenade, which topped charts in 15 countries. Then Locked Out of Heaven, which made him the first solo male artist since 1964 to score 4 #1 hits in his first 2 years. Not even Michael Jackson had done that. The Grammys gave him 7 nominations in his very first eligible year. He won Best Male Pop Vocal at just 25 years old, becoming the youngest man to take that award since Stevie Wonder back in 1974. Billboard named him their top Hot 100 artist. The International Federation of the Phonographic Industry called him the best-selling global artist of 2011, beating even Adele. And still, through all of it, Bruno Mars never once talked about what was happening behind the scenes. He just kept performing. He kept smiling. He kept everything locked away inside. Then came the rumors. And this is where the story gets complicated. In March 2024, a segment aired on News Nation that stopped the internet cold. The claim was simple but explosive. Bruno Mars allegedly owed around $50 million to MGM Resorts after years of gambling debt, and he was supposedly working it off by performing at their Park MGM venue in Las Vegas. Within hours, the story was everywhere. Gossip blogs ran with it. Reddit exploded. Talk show hosts picked up. One television personality told his entire audience that he had heard Bruno once lost $17 million in a single night at a blackjack table. It did not matter whether it was confirmed or not. The image was too powerful. A global superstar worth hundreds of millions, secretly drowning in casino debt, trapped under the same neon lights where he performed to sold-out crowds every week. The story spread like wildfire because it felt like it could be true. And there was a reason it felt that way. Bruno himself had admitted years earlier that he started gambling before he was even of legal age. He once confessed that he had lost everything in a poker game. People knew he lived in Las Vegas. People knew he loved the lifestyle of the city. The math that gossip blogs were doing, even though it was completely made up, did not feel impossible to regular people. High rollers in Vegas regularly bet $50,000 on a single blackjack hand. If someone with Bruno's income lost that kind of money over several years, the numbers could theoretically reach 50 million. Gambling harm experts even pointed this out publicly, saying the rumored figure was not mathematically crazy for someone in his position. And that gave the story legs it probably should never have had. MGM Resorts responded fast. They did not give a vague PR non-answer. They went directly to Forbes and Billboard with a clear, direct statement. Bruno Mars owed them nothing. Their exact message was 2 words: no debt. They described their relationship with Bruno as one built on mutual respect, and went out of their way to call him one of the greatest live performers in the world. The denial was strong enough that Wall Street did not even flinch. MGM's stock price held steady. Major outlets like Variety repeated the statement without question. For most celebrities, that would have been the end of it. A quick denial, a short news cycle, and everyone moves on. But Bruno Mars is not most celebrities. He did something far more powerful than releasing a statement. He turned the whole thing into comedy gold. During a show at Park MGM on April 12th, he stopped the music, looked out at the packed crowd, went completely straight-faced, and said, "Ever since they said I'm on the hook for 50 mil, my phone been dry. Where my friends at when I'm broke?" The crowd lost their minds. That one clip was cut, posted, and watched over 6.8 million times on TikTok in a single day. A few months later, when Spotify announced he had reached 150 million monthly listeners, Bruno reposted it with a caption that simply read, "Keep streaming. I'll be out of debt in no time." Then when he appeared on stage with Rose from Blackpink at SoFi Stadium, his very first words into the microphone were, "Almost out of debt." That moment alone pulled 32 million views on Instagram in 3 days. Every single time he made a joke about it, the rumor lost more of its power. And every time he made people laugh, they hit share. He turned a potential career crisis into the best free marketing of his entire life. But here's what nobody was talking about while the debt rumors were burning up the internet. Something far more personal and far more real was quietly falling apart behind closed doors. Bruno Mars had been with Jessica Caban since 2011. They met at a hotel restaurant in New York. She had just come from a modeling audition. He had just finished a show. They locked eyes across the room, and he did not move for 40 minutes. Then he finally walked over, and they talked until 2 in the morning, long after the chairs were stacked and the lights were turned off. Within a year, she had left everything behind and moved across the country to be with him. She slept on an air mattress while he toured the world. They built a life together, slowly. By 2014, they had a home in Studio City, a dog named Geronimo, and 13 quiet years together that Bruno almost never talked about publicly. He called her his rock exactly once in an interview and immediately changed the subject. She appeared on only 3 red carpets in 13 years. Then, nothing. In late 2024, fans started noticing something was wrong. Her anniversary posts were gone from Instagram. Bruno flew to Tokyo alone. He was wearing the gold necklace she had given him, but had turned it around so her initials faced inward, hidden against his chest. Then in January 2025, a fan left a comment on Jessica's beach photo asking simply if she and Bruno had split. Her reply was 15 words long. She wrote, "I will always celebrate and be happy for all of his continued achievements." Cheering from afar. That was it. 15 words, and the internet was on fire within hours. People dug deeper. She had spent Christmas with her family in San Juan. He performed New Year's Eve in Las Vegas. It was their first December apart in over a decade. Sources said they were living completely separate lives. Others claimed he had tried to save things, but kept choosing to extend his Vegas residency instead. And yet neither of them has ever officially confirmed the split. She still follows him on Instagram. He still likes her posts about her fashion line. They still co-own the house in Studio City. Some people say she stays in the guest room when she is in town. Someone even claimed she was spotted backstage at one of his May shows, though no photographs ever surfaced. So what has Bruno Mars actually confirmed at 39? He has confirmed that the gambling rumors were false, but he has done it in a way that shows he understands something most celebrities never learn. Denying a rumor with anger makes people believe it more. Laughing at it makes it disappear. He has confirmed through 20 years of relentless work that everything he has was earned through a level of hunger and sacrifice that most people will never fully understand. A kid who practiced guitar by moonlight in an abandoned zoo. A teenager who ate 99-cent tacos for weeks straight. A man who got dropped by a record label and turned his only friend from that failure into a songwriting empire. He has confirmed that the private life he built with Jessica, whatever it looks like now, was real and was sacred enough that neither of them has been willing to cheapen it with a public announcement. And maybe that is the most surprising confirmation of all. In a world where celebrities announce their breakups before the moving trucks arrive, Bruno Mars has confirmed that some things are still worth protecting. Some truths are still worth keeping quiet. The rumors will always come. The internet will always dig. But at 39, Bruno Mars has finally shown us exactly who he is. Not the debt story. Not the heartbreak headlines. A boy who grew up with nothing, who performed 1,000 shows before he turned 10, who practiced in the dark and never stopped, and who became one of the greatest entertainers the world has ever seen. That is not a rumor. That is the whole truth. And it has been hiding in plain sight the entire time.